In a world where children are increasingly glued to mobile devices, the potential health risks of constant wireless radiation exposure can't be ignored. The National Toxicology Program, or NTP, had led a groundbreaking, decade-long study linking radiofrequency radiation, like that emitted by cell phones, to an increased risk of glioblastoma. Alarmingly, under President Joe Biden's administration, funding for this critical research was redirected, effectively ending one of the most vital cancer investigations in modern history. We firmly believe in America's capacity for innovation and leadership. Yet the United States is being eclipsed by countries like France, Belgium, and Australia, which have taken steps to limit children's cell phone use and ban mobile devices in schools. These nations are responding to growing scientific evidence that non-thermal RF radiation may pose significant health risks. Why is the United States falling behind? Our request. We urgently call upon President Donald Trump to reverse the damage done by the Biden administration. If you or anyone in your circle is hearing this, please convey to President Trump how crucial it is to restart the NTP's research on cell phone radiation, modernize FCC safety guidelines, and protect America's children and families. Update FCC safety guidelines. Embrace modern science. The problem. The Federal Communications Commission continues to rely on safety guidelines established in 1996, focusing almost exclusively on the thermal effects of RF radiation. Yet, an ever-growing body of peer-reviewed studies indicates there may be significant non-thermal biological effects capable of harming human health, even at power levels below those that cause measurable heating. Key evidence and developments. In 2021, the Environmental Health Trust and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. sued the FCC, arguing that its outdated guidelines fail to address non-thermal biological impacts. The court sided with EHT, highlighting a lack of FCC evidence to support the safety of its regulations. Both the NTP and the Ramazzini Institute found links between RF radiation and malignant tumors in rats, including the same type of glioblastoma that claimed the lives of high-profile figures like Senator John McCain, Senator Edward Kennedy, and even Beau Biden. Children's vulnerability. Young brains absorb RF radiation more deeply due to thinner skulls and developing nervous systems. This raises the stakes significantly in schools and homes nationwide. Why it matters. Our current guidelines date back to a time before smartphones were even invented, let alone ubiquitous in every classroom. Americans deserve better than outdated science from the dial-up era. Modernizing these regulations could literally save lives. Our demand acknowledge non-thermal risks in all safety standards and incorporate decades of published research. Adopt stricter guidelines for device manufacturers, prioritizing child safety. Restart National Toxicology Program cancer research. The problem. The NTP's decade-long study into cell phone radiation's health effects was halted after it revealed clear evidence of carcinogenic potential. Rather than expanding these alarming findings or exploring next steps, the current administration chose to redirect those funds away from this essential research, depriving Americans of potentially life-saving knowledge. Key evidence NTP animal studies indicated links between high-level RF radiation exposure and the formation of malignant gliomas and schwannomas, or heart tumors. A parallel study in Italy by the Ramazzini Institute mirrored NTP's conclusions at lower, far-field exposure levels, similar to those from cell phone towers. The FDA-approved Therabionic device uses low-power RF radiation to treat inoperable liver cancer, demonstrating that biological effects, both harmful and potentially therapeutic, occur at non-thermal power levels. Why it matters. When a federally funded research initiative concludes there is a cancer risk associated with everyday technology, the responsible response is more science, not less. Cutting off this line of inquiry leaves families and policymakers in the dark, undermining our children's future and eroding trust in public institutions. Our demand immediate reinstatement of NTP research funding so we can understand the full scope of risks and therapies related to RF radiation, transparency about any new findings, and a clear plan for further study. End FCC regulatory capture. Prioritize public health over profits. The problem. For years, critics have decried the revolving door between the wireless industry and FCC leadership. When those tasked with safeguarding public health have deep ties to the very industry they regulate, objectivity can be compromised. Key indicators of regulatory capture. Former FCC Chair Tom Wheeler was once a lead lobbyist for the wireless industry. Such ties raise doubts about the FCC's independence. The FCC's reluctance to update its 1996 guidelines even after a federal court demanded reconsideration signals an unwillingness to place science above commercial interests. Why it matters. The rapid expansion of 5G infrastructure occurs without comprehensive safety testing for non-thermal effects. Meanwhile, children in schools are exposed to a sea of wireless signals daily, from cell phones and tablets to routers and smartboards. Our demand eliminate conflicts of interest by appointing leaders at the FCC who have no direct ties to the telecom industry. Strengthen transparency and oversight to ensure that public health, not private profit, guides regulation. Amend the Telecommunications Act of 1996. Restore local rights. The problem, Section 704 of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, effectively prevents local governments from considering health or environmental concerns when placing cell towers. This decades-old provision has left states and municipalities powerless to protect citizens, especially vulnerable children, from potential RF hazards. Key concerns: implied conflict preemption. The federal government overrides any local attempts to regulate cell tower placement for health reasons, despite mounting evidence of risk. Tort immunity. The telecom industry is shielded from liability, removing incentives to ensure public health safety. Outdated standards. TCA 1996 is locked into the same archaic framework that only looks at thermal effects. This is particularly troubling given new data on non-thermal impacts. Why it matters. Countries around the world are banning or restricting cell phone use in schools to protect children. Yet, American communities often have no say about towers installed near playgrounds or classrooms. This is an unacceptable disregard for parental and local autonomy. Our demand: amend Section 704 to restore local and state rights to regulate wireless infrastructure based on health concerns. Encourage accountability by holding the industry liable for proven harms. 5 reasons we're calling on President Trump. Public health legacy. Mr. Trump has shown a willingness to challenge established norms. Restoring NTP research and updating FCC guidelines would leave an enduring positive impact on American health. Pro-America, pro-children. Few causes are as pro-family as safeguarding children from preventable health risks. Championing safer tech is a win for American families. Strategic leadership America can lead the world in both technology and safety. By pioneering updated guidelines, we set the global standard while protecting our citizens. Job creation. Funding more robust science and safety research creates high-skilled positions and fosters American innovation. Restoring trust in institutions. Reinvesting in objective research and removing conflicts of interest at the FCC will renew faith in government agencies. Take action now. Contact elected officials. Call or write to your representatives demanding that they sponsor legislation to update FCC safety guidelines and restore NTP research on wireless radiation. Spread awareness. Share this blog post with friends, family, and community leaders. Knowledge is our first line of defense. Support research. Advocate for laws that promote open, transparent studies into the health effects of 5G and future wireless technologies. Practice safe tech use. Until the standards are updated, reduce exposure by using wired internet, employing speakerphone or headsets for calls, and limiting your child's screen time. Significant research and resources. The Interphone Study, a multinational investigation linking heavy cell phone use to an increased risk of brain tumors. Hardell Group research in Sweden found elevated risks of gliomas among long-term cell phone users. The Bio-Initiative report summarized over 1,800 studies on electromagnetic field health impacts, calling for stricter exposure standards. Therabionic treatment, FDA-approved RF-EMF therapy for inoperable liver cancer, proving that non-thermal RF radiation has measurable biological effects, both good and bad. And the court ruling against the FCC in 2021. a landmark decision stating that the FCC's 1996 guidelines fail to protect the public from emerging non-thermal health threats. Conclusion. Mr. Trump, America's children need you. Mr. President, we ask you to consider this an urgent bipartisan public health matter. The well-being of our children, and indeed all Americans, transcends politics. Your intervention could reverse what many see as one of the most harmful decisions of President Biden's term, the abrupt termination of cutting-edge cancer research that might protect future generations. Restart the NTP's vital investigations into wireless radiation. Modernize FCC rules based on current science. Empower local communities by reforming the Telecommunications Act. Restore trust that our government protects, not endangers, our children. If you or anyone in your circle reads this, please pass it along to President Trump. Now is the time to stand up for the health of millions of Americans and secure our nation's place as a leader in both technology and safety. The children of America and future generations are counting on bold action today. For more information, visit RF Safe, a long-standing advocate for updated safety standards and consumer awareness of EMF exposure at www.rfsafe.com. Contact John Coates at 727-610-1188.